everybody. Apologies on being late this evening. I thought that I was going to start the show without me, but it didn't happen. So was coming back from softball and came back and a little late and trying to get everything all set up. So my apologies, folks. Welcome to another episode of Woodward Tigers here and on the Woodward Sports Network. And just, apparently the Rockies are calling up Witten Bernard. So that was some breaking news that broke out there. I'm Ray Lucas. Social media is Uper. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I'm, again, apologies on being late this evening. But a really cool moment happened tonight in softball. I wasn't going to play. I just played to show up, do the scoring and coach third base. And we're playing one of those teams that, takes it too seriously. They run on everything. This guy ran from first to he ran an inside park home run on a shallow single to right. Look, I understand being competitive. I understand that it's co-ed softball, and I understand that. But good Lord, come on. And then this one guy playing third who had he was he had a bandana or something. He was sitting there going one of her. So softball, you know that if anybody ran up the pitch, that it's an automatic out. Well, the umpire was hugging the other team. Keeping this in mind, was hugging the other team earlier, and the rule didn't really apply to them, or it was just kind of like she had really weird rules with certain people. And they also have 4 guys batting in a row. Now she's like, "Oh, you don't have to have girl, boy, girl." I'm like, every softball league I've ever known, it has to be that way.
Yeah.
After this team, and so, and then in the last inning, they asked me to play third. I'm like, it's not really my position, but I'll play whatever. So I ended up playing. Long story short, then I got the bat and I had a pinch hit single to left, but we fell short by 2 runs. So,
almost had to come back.
Almost had to come back. Yes,
you're going to lead the comeback. You're going to spark the comeback.
Yeah, it would have been a great story, but nevertheless, there's a lot of headlines to get to. There's a lot of things. The Tigers are now lost 70 games. Ooh. So we're into we wanted a competitive second half, but not happening. And by the way, I want to clear up something real quick before we start, and Chris on the show, and I wanted to play something too. I'll play this in a second, but I got a lot of texts yesterday saying, "Hey, congratulations on Avila being fired and what have you and all that." And I was like, "You guys are not going to be as angry anymore." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then it occurred to me that I've been told by a couple people that we've talked to that we're angry, Uper. Not you in particular, but the blog communities, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, you guys are always yelling about the Tigers. I'm sorry. Should we not say anything about the Tigers? Did I miss something?
No, well, when we have game after game, especially this year, where the other night, just for fun, I put out a tweet. Which of the Tigers' 4 singles have you enjoyed the most tonight? Because there's what is there good to talk about? There's literally not been a happy storyline to the entire season that anyone could really seize on, other than maybe the bullpen if you get jacked up about that. But in terms of Avila, it's funny. Back in the day, in the early days of blogging and chatting, I was accused of being Mr. Sunshine. Just the happiest guy.
Wait a minute. Were you?
Yeah. I wouldn't criticize anybody, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that was true then, and I don't think it's true now that we're over the top negative. I think when you have a rebuilding process that started in 2017, and I know some will say 2015, and it's continually gone wrong, and there have been nothing but potholes and speed bumps everywhere they've turned. At some point, the buck stops here. We learned yesterday it doesn't stop with Chris Illich, so it had to stop with Avila. So
I'm glad you mentioned that because I have some Chris Illich audio for you that some people have heard me or not, but so check us out.
Looking back at the way things have gone, obviously not being able to predict the future, but do you have any regrets of trading some of the veterans away that have been traded away, like Verlander or JD Martinez?
So I would say to you, I didn't trade those players away, right? Our general manager did. Al did. That's his role. If you're asking if the organizational, I'm not going to comment on past activities and go through a litany of moves that Al has made over the course of the past years. You can all assess that on your own, and I'm really focused at this point looking forward. I believe bringing in a new leader in our baseball operations area is going to give us fresh perspective. It's a real opportunity to reevaluate everything that we're doing and bring new ideas in a fresh perspective as we go forward. And so my focus is going forward. But I did want to spend time with you today to talk about why I made this decision and where we head from here.
Detroit Tigers.
So Profiles and courage there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Profile and courage of Chris Illich.
Did you like the always sunny reference there?
Yeah, I love it. It's very nice. I mean, I don't know where you've been good with that other than that's a real profile and courage. So definitely he's saying the buck stops down the hall. It doesn't stop with me. He laid pretty much everything at Al Avila's feet, which I guess as owner he has every right to do. It's just laughable. I mean, I think as those quotes are coming out, everybody who's paid any attention to the Tigers over the last decade knows that Justin Verlander was not traded without Chris Illich's stamp of approval. I mean, who are we kidding here? And, but he wanted to put that on Avila's shoulders as a going away present. That was his party gift instead of the home version of baseball. And I guess that's who Chris Illich is.
I was just playing the audio, Chris. The audio sent you over earlier with the always sunny reference to it because, and look, R1 versus J4 on YouTube. I don't know what I mean, it sounded like he was basically saying, in other words, the past is the past. Let's move on. And again, the accountability, it just sounded, the whole thing sounded really weird. Even the media was, Brad Galley and everybody else that was kind of reporting that was very kind of like, huh? What's going on here? And yeah, I was a little miffed by it, but that was hitting yesterday. And again, the Tigers are in such a bad shape right now that here we are on August 11th, and they've lost 70 games. They lost again today, where your star shortstop allowed 300 runs, was responsible for allowing 300 runs today. And you don't announce anything about your starter down in Toledo the last second. Did you guys know that Eduardo Rodriguez was one tonight?
No idea. But he pitched shutout, right? Shutout, like 5 innings?
Yeah, he pitched really good. No, but Chris, they didn't do an announcement until last minute, right? Chris? Okay. Oh, he's okay. So I didn't see, unless anybody on YouTube, I didn't see anything that was out ahead of time promoting his starter or what have you. They just kind of threw it up there. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I didn't thought I saw anything, but
no, I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it until I just checked the box score half hour ago. I saw he struck out 6 and walked 1. Looked pretty good.
So, apparently Spencer Torkelson hit a walk-off. That's okay. That's what Chris was doing. Okay. So Chris, okay. I got a comment in Discord. So thanks for everybody who joined the Discord, by the way. We got a big time rush of people that joined. So thank you for joining. And we have a request in there if you have a closing song or your opening, or if you're a closer, what would be your song? And the reason why I was doing that is because it seems like we've seen Edward Diaz and we've seen a lot of this happening recently. So I just thought it'd be kind of cool to see what people in Discord would name. So, but the Tigers were outclassed in every way, shape, or form this week by the Guardians. I don't really want to go into it because, quite frankly, there's really, unless I'm missing something about a storyline, they're now 17 games back of first place, and Cleveland's in first place. That's how bad this division is. White Sox have just decided to, and Minnesota, like I thought Minnesota would at least go and do enough at the trade deadline, and they did. They actually made some trades, but they're only 4 games up on 500, and this is what makes this year frustrating. If the Tigers were playing what they were last year, a little bit like about that, it would be a lot more exciting. There'd be a lot more people at the games. But since the Lou Whitaker game, which by the way, for everybody who went to that, was fantastic. The entire ceremony, there was not a dry eye. That was really close, really, really cool. And to be on the field I was fortunate enough to be on the field to record that. That was awesome. So time to fire cool. Ouch. No.
I'm guessing that was a
cool. Yeah.
Autocorrect there type of. Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to get that Torkelson walk off.
As you should, because he needed. We saw him last night, and he didn't look good. Honestly, he did not look good.
He looked like he looked in Detroit. It was
ground balls,
strikeout looking, a strikeout swinging, 2 ground balls to shortstop, and then they intentionally walked him for some reason. So maybe that's why. Maybe tonight is why. But anyway,
Joey Wentz looked really good though. I thought Joey Wentz did. I had a hard time locating his fastball, but I thought his, was throwing a slider, change up and everything. No problem, Chris. That's what I thought you meant. My bad, man.
We know what you meant.
We knew you meant. You meant, you're awesome. So don't worry about it, man. But yeah, I thought Wentz did fine, and there was a setback with Bill Brisky. He's been put on a 60-day IL, so they didn't have to make a corresponding move for Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter, Slayer of Worlds, Slayer of Dragons, is
nervous Nelly.
Nervous Nelly is over.
He looks way too nervous right now. Like that. He hasn't swung at pitches like that all year. We've been watching him in the minors. It's always tough. It's a huge jump between the minors and the majors. People don't appreciate that. That's everybody who says call him up. They don't understand apparently, or it's just a shtick at this point. But he's not as bad as he's looked.
Yeah.
It's just.
I'm sure he's not. Right now I think he's probably averaging swinging at 1 strike per at bat, right? And the other strikes are out of the zone. And there's just not a lot of patience there right now, and that's okay. The good news is they've lost 70 games already, and 68 were without him. So they can keep him in the lineup for quite a while here, and that's just fine.
Yeah, and Miggy's going to be part-time the rest of the year, it looks like, too. And one of the things that was picked up today, by the way, that not to get too far off the Avila topic, but the fact that Avila was in the room but not making roster decisions, became between AJ Hinch and Sam Mezen, who takes over the day-to-day operations. And I thought that was interesting. It kind of, in we've talked about this, Chris and I have talked about this too. It proves our theory that we were even talking about, that the kind of level of disconnect that you can see when certain players were called up. For example, Corey Joyce versus Trey Cruz, the old guard versus possibly the new guard. So it was interesting.
How many times this year on this podcast we speculated, or we put up the proviso out there, is Avila really in charge? Or is he making calls right now, or is he a figurehead? And that kind of nudges you toward figurehead. And you have to decide to cut the cord now.
Yes! Yeah. And by the way, for the record, for as far as celebrating Avila, you can celebrate any way you want. It was just funny to me that some of the people were just, I don't know, like it was like a monumental day in history. It's just another guy, Randy Smith is still the worst GM of all time. But
I mean, I think that the key thing that we've been trying to get across is that, at least I've been trying to get across, is that, like, yeah, you can celebrate and all that stuff, but firing the bad GM is the easiest part of this.
Yeah.
And we've like, it was obvious, everybody knew it had to come. We don't know why it came now. I have some theories, but like the example I made for Lions fans, everyone couldn't wait to get rid of Matt Millen, and they got rid of him. And what are they getting in his place? They got Martin Mayhew, who was there for what, 3, 4, 5 more years, and then they got another GM, and now they finally have a GM that Lions fans seem to like. But it's the firing isn't the important part. The important part is getting the next hire right. And
Right.
So, I mean, that's, I guess, when I would celebrate. Although it's hard to know. It's difficult to know when they hire somebody if it's going to be the right call. I thought Avila was going to do a good job 7 years ago. You can find my tweet.
Yeah. As far as candidates, I did write today for Woodward Sports rather, a article breaking down a little bit about who I'd like as candidates, and I didn't really break down the Avila history too much because I've done that several times in Motor City Bengals, and I just felt like I'm not going to repeat with doing the podcast or anything. But I gave name 3, as we did get a request for that tonight. But I referred to Simon and Garfunkel's Songs of Silence, the Sound of Silence, rather.
Yeah, I saw that. It was good.
Yeah, and it was kind of because when I saw Brendan Day's title, I felt it was kind of fitting. But there's 2 things we could take away with this. Was coming from last year. I mean, we saw this last year in August when they got rid of David Littlefield and Chad. There was changes to come, and then you saw that with the next month, Ryan Garko. Then Gabe Rivas got hired. And then a bunch of guys got hired in December. Then I wanted to point out though, like Kerry Carpenter, who got some swinging help, whether it was outside the organization, still he got some swinging help. But then Parker Meadows, Winfield Perez, Josh Crouch. There's a bunch of hitters that are actually hitting. Again, the Tiger system. Cole Keith. Yeah. Look, the Tiger system as a whole, as a collective, is ranked in the mid-20s right now, according to Baseball America. I think it's like 25th or 26th or something to that effect. I can't remember exactly. But the changes that were made last offseason are reflective in the system right now. So it has nothing to do with Avila. So there were some things already in place. And the candidates, by the way, I mentioned was Carlos Rodriguez, the VP of Player Development, International Scouting for the Rays. He's been there for a while, and he's responsible for signing guys like Wander DeFranco and Diego Castillo, and he's been able to do a good job. But I think that one might be a stretch because he's from Florida. He might want to stay in the area, and somebody's also going to poach somebody else from Tampa, so he might be the next man up to run the team. James Harris, who's the assistant GM of the Cleveland Guardians, he was the director of player development prior to that, and this guy came from football. He was a football player. He played for the Eagles. Then he was a special assistant at baseball, and he's done a really hell of a job. If you look at Cleveland today, that's an example of a farm system that works.
Mm-hmm.
And then with a cheap owner. And then Josh Burns, who is a senior VP of baseball operations, one of 10, as was pointed out to me in Discord yesterday. 10? Is that right? 10? Yeah, 10. 10. But essentially he's doing a kind of a glorified title. There's not really much to his title, apparently. But Burns has worked with Hinch twice. So he worked with him in Arizona, and then Hinch was his assistant GM at San Diego. So they have quite a history together.
I think so often many of these things come down to teams do what's easiest. And I was trying to rank in my mind what's the easiest move. And obviously I think number 1 would be promote from within and do Menzen. But then number 2 jumps out at me the more we've talked about it the last couple of days, and you read Josh Burns' background with Hinch.
Yeah.
Really kind of makes him, to me, the second easiest move, especially if Illich values prior GM experience. So that's where I put my money right now if I had to put money on it.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think Menzen and Burns do seem like the 2 most likely candidates. I know we had a question about if we would name some guys that the guy always bring up. I could bring up again if you want me to now, or if we could wait for the questions. But it's Mike Groupman, the current assistant general manager for the Red Sox. who I think he's only like 37, 38, maybe close to 40 now, but he's basically, he was an intern for the Reds and then the Mets, then worked for Major League Baseball as a labor relations guy for a little bit. Then he spent 10 years with the Royals doing operations and then analytics. And then he was put in charge of Milwaukee's international scouting and development for 4 years, which really, he turned that around to the point where they've gotten a lot of value out of there. It's not quite to the major leagues yet, but that's how it works. It takes 5-6 years, but he really did a good job there. And the Red Sox poached him and made him AGM. I just like to see, maybe he's not quite ready for a general manager, but seems like a guy who's got all the requisite experience that you need for a general manager. And I keep pointing out that
that's an impressive sounding resume. And to be honest, I put a tweet out about not him, but today I'd much rather see them go young with some new ideas and a track record like that guy. And so what if he's ready or not? He's got the background. If you want to swing big, that's the kind of guy that it jumps out at me too. The more you talk about him, I like that idea.
You can also find articles he wrote at Baseball Prospectus back in 2006. He used to write over there. So,
yeah.
And a lot of it was about health for some reason. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a name that I think he'll probably be a GM at some point in the next 5-10 years. So, but like we said, there are a lot of candidates out there. I know you already talked about the press conference. Press conference is my ugly. We don't need to get into all that right now, but I just get the sense that Chris Ilitch is going to do whatever's easiest. So that's probably Menzen to me, but we'll see. We'll see, what Hinch wants to do.
Yeah. Again, and I think that you're absolutely correct. You look at I guess I don't want to say nepotism and nepotism across the board. Carlos Rodriguez was friends with the GM from the Braves, Alex. I forgot the guy.
Anthopoulos.
Yeah, Anthopoulos. Yeah, they were friends, and he got a job scouting with the Jays. So that kind of you get to know somebody, and then you get to know somebody and go from there. The trees out there, baseball GM trees, are pretty bad out there for. And honestly, I like your suggestion, Chris, a lot. I think. But I mean, if Josh Byrne's there, I'm fine with that. Actually, really, I kind of think of it. Out of the 2 or out of the 3 I mentioned earlier, I think if they go for a different type of hire, I say, why not somebody like along the lines of the James Harris? I mean, look again. Cleveland's a very cheap team. They don't spend a lot of money, so somebody that already has that kind of background in thrifty GM or thrifty ownership, why not? It just seems like if you're going to do that, and Cleveland maximizes all their talents. And so I like that idea. Hinch doesn't want the job. We're going to chat on there on YouTube. He doesn't want the job. He wants to manage. So I think he's fine with that. And he's done the front office stuff when he was in San Diego. Probably, I don't want to assume or speak for him, but maybe not like it. But I agree with what Stop It said here on YouTube, which is Detroit's inability to create young hitters must change. And that is fundamentally 100% correct. We could talk about the number. I could talk about Parker Meadows all day long. I could talk about Perez. I could talk about Roberto Campos' new, better swing numbers and Cole Keefe, but it doesn't matter if they're not producing at the major league level. If you can give me one player, if I had a campaign slogan, it would be Rogelio for 2-WAR player. If you just give me one 2-WAR player consistently for 1 year, then it is a very pathetic small victory. It's pathetic that we have to resort to that, but a small victory nevertheless.
I mean, no, that's what you talked about before. If you had a team full of 2-WAR players, you'd win like 105 games.
Sure.
So if you can get average talent, guys who can fill in and do the job, and you win championships with the superstars to get you there, but it's those average players that help you out. And it's one of those things, like, when I was talking about recruitment, like I really want to see them fix the international department. And they have some young guys coming. But when you look at a team just look at Minnesota. they've got like 6 homegrown international players on their major league roster right now. Polanco, Sano. I mean, they're of varying degrees of
really
quality.
good.
Kepler,
Arias.
Miranda. Just being able to supplement your team with talented big leaguers from anywhere, it would just be such a huge improvement. And it's not going to happen quickly, unfortunately, but they need to do that as much as they need to. Just like Stoppett said, get young hitters. They need to get them from the international market just as much as they need to get them from the draft. And honestly, like we've seen them, we're pretty pleased with the young hitters they've taken in the draft the last 2 years. I guess last 3 years they didn't really take anybody this year. So maybe they've improved in that regard, and it's just going to take time. But need to keep doing more of that.
To answer Stoppett's question, he asked a really good question on YouTube. Is it true that they don't teach theory or approach to hitting whatsoever? Do you think that's true or just low talent? Until this year, until recently, I think it was just lack of talent. But I think there's some sort of change. Look at, for example, Parker Meadows is the exact example of what I'm talking about. Parker Meadows had a hard time even getting a barrel on the ball. I mean, he would have to, remember how they were having him bunt for singles?
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, he was quick. For his size, he should drive the ball. Then this year, he started driving the ball and consistently and well. And Winstead Perez was spurts of goodness throughout his time in West Michigan. But this is the most consistent we've seen Winstead Perez ever. And, I mean, he's also a viable threat on the base path. He's a switch hitter. There's a lot to like about him. And the fact he's put it together, it can't be coincidence that based off all the changes the Tigers have made prior to this in the offseason, that there's some sort of result from it. I mean, you can't tell me that the old regime was like, suddenly they figured it out. No, there's something's going on. And for how many games we've gone to,
Well, I mean, we've been begging them to the Tigers tend to take unathletic guys who they think can hit, or super athletic guys, and they cross their fingers and hope that they can hit. And Perez and Meadows are two of the more athletic players in the system, and whatever they finally like, hey, why don't you use that athleticism to hit? And it's working, and that's good to see because that's what you need. Those are the types of guys who, I don't think Winstead Perez is going to offer a lot of defensive value, but he could probably stick at second base. It might be a little bit iffy there, but just getting athletes. You don't want these corner guys who, if they fail, then there's no fallback. So I don't know. Yeah, that's two of the more encouraging developments so far this year. We just need more of it, and we talked about it. Like Avila's big mistake was not doing this overhaul 5-6 years ago. We're seeing some progress, but it was just way too late for him.
That homer today by Parker Meadows, that was a shot. That thing was gone. The pitcher never even looked up. He never turned his head.
He also doubled earlier in the game and walked. I mean, he's after his first month kind of adjusting to Double-A pitching, he's been really good there. And it's he and Perez have both played themselves into 40-man roster spots, which is nice to see. That's what you want to see from your young prospects, right? So, again, good developments there. Kerry Carpenter's a great story. Even if he looks completely lost, there's some good things happening. It's too little, too late.
No, I'm not a hitting coach. Excuse me. Now, Kerry Carpenter's follow. He looks like a left-handed Jacoby Jones to me. He has that same low finish. That always scares me when I see someone like that. So I was comparing someone else to Jacoby Jones the other day. I didn't feel good about that either.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was earlier in the Carpenter has kind of a unique looking swing where he almost, it's like he swings and he's almost down on his knees when he finishes his follow through. And we were trying to think of, I think it was Ghost Mav who was like, hey, who does this remind you of? And I was like, I don't know, Reggie Jackson. I was trying to think a long time ago, but then he said Corey Seager, which I could see. It's just kind of that left-handed uphill finish, but where he's dropping down. And what's unique about Carpenter doing that in the minors, at least, was he was still able to do that and drive the ball to the opposite field. It remains to be seen if he can actually do that in the majors. He's gonna have to make contact first, but we'll give him time.
So yeah, there's again, just getting used to major league pitching. He's gonna for people who write him off and try to blame Scott Coolbaum already. Get a life. No, seriously, get a life. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Here I ruined his swing. What is wrong with you people? Christ.
Well, today.
Did it again.
It's a bit at this point.
I love it.
I'm sorry. I swear to God, I'm like, this is a perfect time. And then as soon as like, oh man. Oh God. All right, go ahead and finish your point. Then
good times.
Go ahead.
Inside the numbers?
Yeah, go. Or what were you gonna say before that?
Now I lost it.
All right.
Sorry.
My bad, man. No,
inside the numbers.
Yeah, inside the numbers. What is your
I know
inside
what
the
to say. Today's game, Kerry Carpenter.
Yeah,
he had a couple of at-bats where, he could have swung the game. Okay, great. If he got the ball in play, he didn't. But it was just amazing how many times the Tigers had either the tying run up on base or the go-ahead run on base. And you could just sense, no matter who was up there, it was Baду once and someone else another time, Haas, you could just see they weren't going to get the ball to the outfield. You just had that sense, because that's the way the whole season's been going. And the lineup is just so full of holes. If you want to put it on Kerry Carpenter, go ahead, but come on. A lot of guys had important at-bats today and did nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they're at the point now where they're just trying to see what guys can do, because if they really, really wanted to win that game today, I think they probably would have pinch hit Cabrera for Carpenter.
Yeah.
Instead of letting Carpenter do that. But they wanted to see if Carpenter could come through, but an awesome moment if he had.
Absolutely.
And, they put Cabrera up there, they intentionally walk him, and they pull him out. So it's like, hey, good game, Mickey.
Yeah, tough day's work.
Yeah, it was a. Again, I think they're at this point they're just going to say, you know what, do your thing and go from there. All right, Uper, what is your inside number?
Okay, my numbers today are 27-2. After our show last week, the Tigers started a 4-game series with the Rays. And just to show some of the difference between how the two teams approach the sport, it got out of control. The Rays, they won 3 out of 4 games. It wasn't, but 2 of those games were very close. I mean, the Tigers could have easily split or won that series. But the walk disparity was really the big difference. The Tigers walked 27 Rays batters in the course of 4 games. Oof. Detroit drew 2 walks on offense, 27-2 over a 4-game span. I've been unable to find out if that's a record, but I have a strong suspicion if it's not a record in walk disparity in a 4-game series, it's really close. It's hard to walk 27 times in a series, number one. And then to only allow 2 in the same period of time, you just don't see that. And and a couple of those are 1-run games. If the Tigers need a reason to change their approach of who they bring to the major leagues, what kind of hitters they want, that Tampa series is a nice little look of what professional at bats look like versus just unprofessional at bats half the time. So 27-2 was really a number I'll remember for a long time.
Oh, that's funny because it's kind of how my inside number is going to work. Chris, what is your inside number?
So I didn't do another one for tonight because
sorry.
No, it's fine. I can do that's on me, just in case nobody was listening or people you're listening now weren't listening yesterday. When I was stuck in traffic on the Southfield Freeway eating nachos from Taco Bell, my number was 65, which is the Tigers' road OPS plus, meaning they are 35% below average on the road, which is by far the worst in baseball this year, and was in fact the second worst of all time, trailing only the 1903 Washington Senators. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like the home offense is so great. It's actually second worst in baseball this year, ahead of the Nationals. It's the Tigers in Washington, something about that. But yeah, something about them on the road this year just makes them incredibly inept, and it's I don't know. Like we talked about all year. There's just trying to find new ways to describe how incredibly bad this offense has been. And this is my latest one. Bad on the road. Bad.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you guys a number that may be happy for some of you to hear. So my number is, there's two numbers, 4,943 and 6,143. So right now the 4,943 is the amount of times the Tiger minor leagues as a total have struck out. In 2021, they struck out 6,143 times. So that's a significant. Again, that's all of 2021, and we have about a month left for everybody but AAA. So, but still, if you're looking at it right now, there's a difference. That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of difference. And in terms of another number, the reason why I want to look at that was I was looking at what changes, or what, like we were talking about progress. So what in the minors has changed that could be a sign of true things, but everything else kind of is very similar, if not close. Like for example, OPS is 733 this year. OPS last year was 726. Total bases are kind of a thing where the total bases are 6,000 or 6,989 and 8,088. So, but yeah, the strikeouts to me is significant. I mean, right? I mean, we're talking about a team that we saw a lot of last year that across the organizations. I mean, we saw a lot of quick at bats, but I don't know. It's something to, I don't want to say necessarily hang your hat on, but it's something. I mean, or am I just reaching for straws here, gentlemen?
I think, if you can see positive traits and organizational approach, that's only a good thing. And that's getting everybody on the same page from top to bottom. Seems like a positive.
And it was one of the things we talked about with West Michigan this year is they have a remarkably high walk rate as a team. The strikeouts aren't too bad. And you mentioned earlier about like the behind the scenes struggle to call up Trey Cruz or Corey Joyce. It feels very much like hey, this guy we should call up because he was a third round pick, and this guy we should call up because he deserves it, right? Like and that seems to be the difference in opinion there. No, I don't know. Again, there are some things that we can point to as positives, but it's hard to enjoy it really when everything at the major league level is negative. I can only imagine if the Tigers were succeeding this year and what was going on in the minors this year has gone on, people would be like, oh man, look at this. And Parker Meadows and Winslow Perez, but now it's just like, okay, cool. Let's see it at the big leagues.
Well, I will say this. I mean, based off some of the traffic we've seen on the website and on our Twitter account, people do care about the minors, and people are, and they're going to take more of a center stage with all the changes that are going to be coming. So we already seen it. We mentioned this on Sunday during the minor league podcast that, you see Kinston Liniak gone. You have, they're not wasting time anymore. If you're not getting it done, you're out.
Well, yeah, and if without short season ball, there's just not as much room. We were trying to figure out earlier today, like who is going to be at West Michigan next year in the infield. You got Sequeira and Santana and Pacheco, all from low A this year, and Pacheco's up now. But you also have Peyton Graham and Danny Soretti's playing well, and you got Luke Gold. And like, how are they going to figure all this out? Some guys going to just get jumped to Double A, or are we going to see guys get left down in Low A because there's no room for them? You really have to trust your own player evaluations now, and be willing to push guys who you think can do it, and maybe part ways with guys quicker than before. And that's a scary proposition for the current. I guess it was a scary proposition with Avila because that was arguably their biggest weakness was evaluating their own talent and knowing who was good and who was not. Because boy, did they trade away all the good players and keep most of the bad players.
I just meant to tell you guys. Remember Nick Mishler, the coach here at DMAC that we had on the show last year? Mm-hmm. He pretty good evaluator. He really likes Danny Soretti. He was really glowing about him. The times that he's seen him, what he likes in a hitter, he thinks the guy's going to really hit. So
yeah,
I'm interested to watch him.
He's definitely too good for low A at the moment, but you would hope so after.
Did we have a scout say that? Didn't a scout say that last night too? The gentleman that was sitting in front of us.
Yeah. I believe he was a Royal Scout.
Yeah.
And so we were in Toledo last night, and it was funny. We mentioned this instead of it was the most scouts I've ever seen at a Toledo game for a random midweek Brian Garcia matchup with was it Carlos Hernandez, whoever was pitching for the Royals.
It was Hernandez.
Later, we're trying to figure it out. Then we realized, like, oh, hey, that's Gene Lamont. We didn't realize it was Gene Lamont there until some woman came up to get his autograph on baseball cards. And then we noticed that some of the scouts were actually from like the KBO. It was like, oh yeah, okay. Well, I mean, if I'm from the KBO, I'm looking at Josh Lester really closely because I think that's he's a guy who could really be a good player over there. And so yeah, it was just kind of funny, like, oh man, why are there so many scouts here? But and then we also maybe speculated that it was a bunch of older Tiger scouts trying to justify their existence. But
you've been changers are coming. Yeah, there is.
But the gentleman in front of us was nice and was talking to us, and he was like, I haven't seen Joey Wentz since he was in high school. He looks good.
Oh, by the way, every name I could have said any name out there. He was like, oh yeah, boom. You talk like Chris and I. As soon as the draft's over, Chris has talked about this before. As soon as the draft's over, we forget everybody. But this guy was just like, he was talking about Pint, the Rockies pick.
Riley Pint.
Yeah, Riley Pint. And he was like, so I'm here. So I'm here, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like without even like bat an eye, just boom, 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 kept coming. These guys go to a lot. And like, you realize how hard scouting is. But good God, man. I mean, bow to you, man. Because he's just any name. It didn't matter. He's like, oh, yeah, this guy went to Oregon State. He was a center fielder.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned he was asking who the Tigers picked, and you mentioned Graham, and then you mentioned Melton. He's like, oh, he thought there were two Meltons in the draft this year, and he got him confused real quick, but then he figured it out, and
he knew both of them.
Yeah, no, he knew that he thought that Jamie Westbrook. He was like, yeah, I don't think he went to college. We're like, I don't know, and then we looked it up, and like, oh, be damned, you're right. Yeah. So he's just like, yeah, I remember him from high school. So yeah, these scouts, that's what they're paid to do, right? Is to evaluate players, but it's one of the more enjoyable aspects of having our fancy pants media passes that we just go sit with the scouts, and if they're nice, they will tell you things that are interesting.
That's cool.
He asked us where we're from and what we do, and he appreciated the fact, and so it was nice because some scouts, actually, majority of the scouts we've talked to have been pretty cool. I mean, Boomer from the Red Scout we talked to at Lansing. He got some good information he may have seen elsewhere on Twitter.
The Mariner Scout and the Cardinal Scout we saw at West Michigan, and I mean, a lot of them, it's a competitive business. They also want to guard their own information, but a lot of them are just huge baseball fans, right? And and they're working, so you don't want to bother them too much. But when they're there, sometimes they like to just share what they've seen.
Yeah. In the case of the guy, we were just making small talk with each other. Chris and I were talking, and then he just kind of just started talking. I thought it was for a second. I thought it was Buddy Bell because it kind of looked like Buddy Bell to me for whatever reason. Yeah. But then I realized Buddy Bell is probably at the Field of Dreams because that's going on tonight. So I was just like,
I saw that they did do the Harry Carey.
Hi.
Hologram. The Harry Carey Tupac hologram.
Nice.
The moon made of cheese. All right, enough of my crappy Harry Carey impression. All right, it's now time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Chris, you already said you're ugly, but what's your good and bad this week?
So my good is actually Francisco Lindor, who everybody knows he's good, but for like the last 2 years there was kind of a little bit of a narrative that maybe he was past his prime, and his numbers weren't necessarily there on offense. It was like a 103 WRC plus 2 years ago in the 60-game season, and then only 104 last year. He was really struggling in his first time with the Mets, but he was still putting up good WAR because he's such an excellent defender. And this year he's just been outstanding. Right now he's got a 132 WRC plus, which ties his career high. And he's already at 5 WAR for the season. which is, I don't know, 6 WAR more than the entire Tigers offense. And he's hitting 270 with 20 home runs and 11 steals and a 10% walk rate. And he was especially good over the past month. Again, while continuing to play excellent defense at shortstop, he was a 2 WAR player in the last 30 days with a 197 WRC plus. And it was just kind of interesting to look back at, he was originally going to be one of these, one of the shortstops available on the great shortstop class of 2022 or 2021, however you want to describe it. But he was the first one to get traded and signed, right? And he has been the best so far this year. I was looking. So Lindor, he's got 5 WAR this year, $32.5 million. It's worth it. And then Corey Seager has been the second best, kind of quietly, I guess, because the Rangers aren't very good. But 3.7 WAR, he's also making $32.5 million. Marcus Semien has been the third best. After all his rough start, he's up to 2.3 WAR now. He's playing second base, but not bad for. I mean, it's $25 million a year, but that's decent. He's going to be like a 3 WAR player. Carlos Correa hasn't been great this year. 1.6 WAR for $35 million. I'm starting to wonder if he's going to hop back in with the Twins based on this season. Try again next year. Then you got Trevor Story, 1.9 WAR for $23 million. The Red Sox, he's playing second base, and then the back of the pack is Javi Baez, 0.8 WAR for $20 million. I guess who could have seen that one coming? So that was my good somehow. My bad is we'll stay in the central here, is Alex Kirilloff, who I've talked about a lot because he's a relative, but I'm just going to skip that and talk about the baseball aspect of it now. And it's a bummer. Like, we don't necessarily care if the Twins have troubles, right? It's fine.
Right.
But it's always a bummer when young players struggle with injuries. We talked about it with Mickey Moniak a couple months ago, and Royce Lewis has had multiple injuries. But with Kirilloff, it kind of feels like he's been around for a long time, because I think he came up for the playoffs in 2020. That was his MLB debut. But he's only played 104 games in the big leagues because he's constantly injuring his wrist. Yeah, and he was like the 2016 Appalachian League MVP over Vlad Guerrero Jr. He got off to a great pro start, but then he ended up getting Tommy John surgery in 2017. And he was good the next couple of years, but he's just been dealing with this lingering wrist issue. Happened in 2021. He went on the IL with a wrist sprain, came back for a few weeks, then went out for the year with a ligament tear in his right wrist. Back this year, he was on the IL with a wrist inflammation, out for a few weeks, out with a right wrist contusion, and then they just announced he's out for the year with surgery on the wrist. And it was something I've never heard of before, where they actually are cutting out 4 millimeters of bone in his wrist.
Whoa.
So, yeah, basically the doctors were like, well, here's the problem. You've got too much bone in your wrist. So I've never heard of it before, but they're hoping he can make a complete recovery. But it's just another example of maybe why we should cool it on prospects. Don't get too invested in prospects, because no matter how good they are, things can go wrong in a billion different ways, and it's just kind of a bummer. But hopefully for a recovery for him next year. But again, like 100 games in 2 years because of wrist injury is not great. And yeah, my ugly was the press conference. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say about that, other than I just, Chris Ilitch just came across as small, right? Like, just like kind of a small man, not a leader of any kind, almost like a politician, but one with actually like zero charisma. Like a real Jeb Bush out there, just not taking any blame. He's more like a stuffed crust Kushner, just kind of soft and moist. And I don't know, like, unless he's playing 4D chess and like his goal was to somehow make us feel slightly sorry for Avila, then mission accomplished. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I couldn't have been less impressed with that performance. He comes across as somebody who doesn't love baseball and feels kind of burdened by owning the Tigers, and like he can't even be bothered to pay attention to what's happening. And I don't know if any of that is true. I have no idea, but that's just the way he comes across. And so at the very least, I feel like he needs to take communication classes or something. He seems like somebody who's never been told no by anyone other than his parents. And even then, maybe only a couple times. So it was ugly, and I didn't like it. And I'm hoping that doesn't ruin the next GM, that it's not the fish rotting from the top down.
It's interesting how often he was looking at his notes to remember a few things. I just wonder, to what depth do you think he could talk just extemporaneously about the roster? What does he really know about the inner workings? It's got to be about 6 inches deep.
It really doesn't. It does not. And again, like, it's hard for us to know, but you don't see him really at the games, right? You don't see him. Yeah. And he's an owner. Owners can do whatever they want with their billions of dollars, but it's like what you really want is the wacky billionaire who just wants to win, and he's not that. I can comfortably say that. Maybe he wants to win, but he's not gonna do everything it takes. He doesn't have that burning desire to win. Seems like he probably cares more about parking lots and pizza.
It's hard to say. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but it did look bad yesterday. The entire optics of it all. Even going back to the Red Wings conference, and then he was referring to the minor leagues he was referring to. So, yeah. All right, Yooper, what is your good and bad and ugly this week?
Okay, a real quick mini good to start. Drew Hutchison, he won't be in the good too often, but I just wanted to give him credit for living up to having no expectations. Okay, because I thought yesterday he gives up 3 runs early and it looked ugly, right? This was turning into a 9-0 rout. He somehow found his way through 5 innings and kept it to 3 runs. And he seems to do this a fair amount of time. The Tigers have certainly brought in much worse innings eaters and space fillers. So I just wanted to give a little bit of credit to a guy who, it looked ugly, but he kept it relatively sane out there. So he deserves some credit. He's a little better than I thought he was. But my real good was Dalton Varsho. This is kind of a fantasy baseball moment from me. I kind of ended up with him in a trade as a throw-in. I really wasn't even targeting him. But now that I have him, I'm wondering if I got to keep him as a keeper because he has that catching eligibility as well as outfield. He's caught 18 games this year, so he's going to be a catcher next year for everybody. The dude is tied for first with everybody who has catcher eligibility in home runs. He's in the top 3 in RBIs and runs, and he's in the top 2 in stolen bases for all people with catching eligibility. So that's a guy, if you're in fantasy baseball out there, and especially if it's a keeper league, think about Varsho because he's going to be a step above almost all catchers that you can get. My bad, unfortunately, Spencer Torkelson. For those who don't know, Eric Torkelson was a really bad running back for the Packers in the 70s.
There you go.
He was not good. So, but anyway, hopefully Spencer is not on his track. But he did have the walk-off tonight. That's wonderful. He had 2 hits tonight. I think a walk as well. But let's face it, after he had a couple of home runs over here in Iowa last week, he went into a slump. I think, even including tonight, he's 4 for his last 27. It just feels a lot like what he was doing in the majors. Did you guys see any possible hint of the Torkelsons coming soon?
No.
The Renaissance of Torkelson, the Torkelsons. Are we going to see it this year?
Not this year, no. I don't think so.
Yeah,
he's
honestly,
just not showing enough.
He looked exactly like the same guy. Like he was giving away pitches on the outside part of the plate unless he had 2 strikes. Just wasn't looking to hit them at all. Really, he was. And I to a certain extent I get that. Like, you want a pitch that you can drive early in the count, but pitchers seem to know that. They know that he won't swing, and they can just throw strikes away at will. And then, with 2 swings, he's more defensive, or 2 strikes, he's more defensive. And he expanded the zone. He swung through a high fastball. He took a called strike on the outer third, and then in his next 2 at bats, it was a nice 9-pitch at bat battle, but it was against the lefty with not really great stuff. And he eventually hit a weak grounder to shortstop, which it brought in a run because there was a guy on third, but that was it. And then his next at bat was another weak grounder to shortstop, and it was just, I'm looking for any signs of change, and I haven't seen it. Yeah. I don't know if I imagine it's got to be very difficult when you're a guy who's had the same swing for however long, and you're breaking records at Arizona State, and you're the number 1 overall pick, and you're the first guy to get, more money than the slot value at number 1, and everything's worked all the way through the minors. You had a little bit of you hit the skids a little bit in AAA, but you still hit for power and look good. And then you get up the majors and it doesn't work. And I don't know if he's built to completely reassess himself and change, or if he just thinks he's been unlucky or what. But something needs to change in his swing and his approach, and there's no sign of it yet.
So nothing he's doing looked obviously different, because they said they have a plan for him, right? They didn't tell us what the end game of the plan is, but there was a plan of stuff he's working on. That was pretty much a quote from Hinch.
Yeah, and again, I'm no hitting coach either, so maybe there's some subtle things going on there. But to me, it looks exactly the same as he looked in the summer camp in 2020, in spring training in 2021, all year of the minors last year, and spring training this year, and all year of the major. It's the same swing, it's the same impressive power when he connects. But it just I don't know, didn't look any different to me.
The 2 homers he pounded over here in Iowa were long. One of them left the stadium. He had another bullet off the top of the wall, almost had 3 homers. So I was hoping he was turning it around, but obviously he has not yet. I like it. My ugly. Oh, we always fun to bring up Mr. Tony La Russa. Poor Tony. Johnny Cueto, star pitcher of his team, quoted as saying something's wrong. They have no fire on the field or in the clubhouse. And that was, then obviously Tony, probably, the crusty old curmudgeon that he is, probably the worst person in the world to have to try to defend or weave his way through that comment. That's a minefield for old Chicago sucks. So it was really fun to listen to him try to, I don't know what he's talking about. Well, okay. I think most people looking at the ho-hum season you're having kind of do know what you're talking about. I just think it's funny that I just really believe they're continually paying the price on the leadership level from the head chair. He's fallen asleep the other week, and now we got some people popping off in the press. I don't know. Maybe they can finish strong here and win that division, but they really look depressed.
I've never seen a team that are just basically giving the middle finger to their manager. Quite frankly, because there was I think it was on Twitter where you see him falling asleep, and somebody was trying to say, "Oh, well, maybe it was just a sun." No, it looks like me after 3 hours of sleep, and I'm standing up doing something that I don't want to do. I really, that was bad.
That was definitely that slow closure of the eyelids that comes from fighting off sleep.
Yeah.
That was definitely what that was. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah. That's after, that's seriously, if you work a security job or you've done any kind of mundane BS job and you have to be attentive and you're pulling that, you're falling asleep. No questions asked. You're not getting suntan lotion in your eye or anything like that. That's pure shenanigans. All right. So my good actually starts with the Erie Seawolves. And the reason why I mentioned the Erie Seawolves is because I have a damn good reason why that we mentioned the Erie Seawolves. And that is because of a guy that I put the title of the podcast a couple weeks, I think it was last week, Sawyer, Tom Sawyer's Sawyer, in terms of the starter, Gibson Long was the starter who the Tigers acquired from Minnesota. Everybody was like, oh, who the hell is this guy? The ERA and all that stuff. And by the way, stop it. We'll get to that question here shortly. That's a very good question. We're going to ask questions here in a second. But so tonight he had another game where his first game for the Seawolves was pretty solid. He went 5 innings, he allowed 4 hits, 1 run, struck out 7. Tonight against New Hampshire, which is one of the better teams in terms of hitting, they lead the Eastern League in home runs. He allowed 6 hits over 5 innings, 1 run, and struck out 4. So if you're scoring at home, folks, he's allowed 2 runs in just 10 innings of work so far in his time in Detroit with 1 walk. He's not, and we talked about this before. He's not a guy who gives a lot of walks up anyways. He's really good with control. So, again, just 2 starts. But still, I mean, New Hampshire is not a team to screw with. I mean, they have Aurelius Martinez, who's a really good shortstop. I've been watching him play. He's a really good watch. But so he's off to a good start. My bad is I'm looking, the team since the All-Star break. I've been trying to figure out what's been something that stands out. A lot of teams are kind of in the middle of the pack and where they are. But the San Francisco Giants are 6-14 since the All-Star break. And they're my bad this week because they traded for Dixon Machado and then they just let him go. That's not the reason why they're bad, but they just seem that Giants magic we've been waiting for. They've been pitching pretty well. Their FIP is 3.87, but I expected the Giants to. I think San Diego is just maybe the Dodgers are 17-3 since the All-Star break. The Dodgers are a beast, and the Dodgers are just going to continue to win. But I was surprised about the Giants this season. They've seemed like just all that magic and just injuries, everything's been catching up to them. So it's the first time I mentioned the Giants in quite some time. And my ugly is the Washington Senators, the Nationals farm system, the AA affiliate, the Harrisburg Senators. So why am I mentioning an obscure team from AA? Well, folks, here's a reason why they probably traded Juan Soto for prospects, because their AA affiliate has been getting their ass kicked on a regular basis. I'm talking. I've been watching a lot of AA baseball. Why? I mean, I've been paying attention to Erie quite a bit with some of the players they have there, but I'm looking at this, and in terms of offensive numbers, and the Senators are 41-64. Okay, so their record, whatever, it's AA. They just scored 8 runs, and it's one of the first times in quite some time they scored more than 5 runs all season. But they have been just on. But it was Tuesday's game, 13-2, and it was among, I believe it was like the 4th or 5th time in the last 2 weeks or so that they've given up quite a bit of offense. And so, I mean, it wasn't as bad as Richmond, who beat New Hampshire 19-1 on Sunday, but they came close because they lost to Bowie 18-1 on Sunday. 18-1. And that is an example of what we're talking in terms of the offense. What kind of offense? 5 hits. And they're not getting, I mean, Baker, I forgot the gentleman's name. Darren Baker is their leading hitter at 264.
Dusty Baker's son?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So
yeah. No, just to circle back to the Giants, I don't know if this will make Tigers fans feel any better, but the Tigers, their winning percentage is down 95 points from last year, which is not great, not ideal. The Giants is down 174 points.
Wow.
They've already lost more games this year than they lost all of last year. So you could argue that they're the most disappointing team in baseball, but don't try to tell that to a Tigers fan, right?
Don't tell that to a Giants fan right now. I mean, the Giants right now, you probably ask a Giants fan, they're of course they're going to dump on Detroit because that's an easy thing to do no matter what. Everybody does that dusty Detroit versus everybody slogan. But yeah. All right. So we have questions. I forgot. I forgot to mention we did have a question, but we also had an ugly that we got. Let's see here. Where'd it go? All right. So I do have an ugly, and it was from our buddy over here, Tim. Let's see if I find it. Yep, I have it right here. There we go. Now it's gone. He left it early in the week. Okay, so his ugly. So I don't want to. Hey guys, I don't want to like wish ill will against him, but he's an ex-Tiger, so here it goes. And he sent it over on August 5th, so keep this in mind. Since July 5th, Isaac Praise has hit 121, 8 for 66. Also during that time, he's managed to hit 1 home run more than Austin Meadows and knock in 2 more RBIs. During this time, his batting average has dropped from 254 to 210. Unless this draft pick includes the trade, unless this draft pick included in the trade turns out to be a superstar, I still believe that this is a trade that will be considered one of Avila's few, quote, wins in a few years. So that was That was his inside number. Excuse me. The inside number was 121. Yeah. So
I think he's got every chance of being correct on that one 2 years from now, when Austin Meadows' time might be done here after I think he's controlled for 2 more seasons. Could definitely be the case.
So we're gonna start, Chris. Should I share it with Tim's question from our DMs?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, but yeah, I like this question this week was a really good one too. It was something that he sent to us a couple days ago. But what I like about Tim's questions is they tend to be analytical, or Mark's questions are very analytical and tend to be a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. I just like them anyway. All right. Hey, Rogelio. Harold Castro has a -10 OAA and a FWAR of 0. And Chris, for those scoring at home, what is OAA?
Outs above average. That's StatCast's metric for defensive ability.
Thank you. Willie Castro ranks 5th on the team in OAA. One more, and he's tied for 2nd behind only Scope. Candy's a mess at 3rd. Badu's throwing arm is well documented. In years previous, we had Castellanos and Stewart who were poor defenders. When you look at roster construction for years now, are the Tigers too narrow-sided with hitting and don't put enough value in defense? That's an excellent question.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a loaded question, but
yeah. Well, I mean, for most of my adult life, the Tigers have been bad on defense, and even when they did find good defenders, they were not great offensive players. There have been some exceptions. Ian Kinsler was a great 2-way player. Placido Polanco was a great 2-way player. Granderson early on was a great 2-way player. It just goes to show, like, they've tried the defensive route in the draft before. I think of your Brendan Loys and your Danny Wirths, right? They went glove first infielders, and those guys could never hit. And so they've also tried the bat only approach, and that hasn't worked either. I just think, like, it just all of it needs an overhaul. They need a giant overhaul to everything, to the way they develop defenders, the way they draft and scout guys to know if they can play defense. I mean, even we talk about a lot of their promising young international talent. Emmanuel Socara is probably not a shortstop, probably more of a 3rd baseman or 2nd baseman. Same with Christian Santana. Like the big names, they still aren't getting the actual gloves. And even, when they got Willie Castro, he was known as a glove first shortstop. He was a quality hitter at shortstop. He was not much of a hitter. That was the book on him.
Right. And
then all that went sideways. And so I don't know, like, Sergio Alcantara, right? He was a great defender, couldn't hit. They just can't find the sweet spot of guys who can do both. Cale Ward, great defender, lots of tools, can't hit. Just go throughout the history. So, if they want to go out there and just be like, you know what, since we can't hit anyway, let's just get a bunch of defenders. Fine. And the Tigers fans are probably used to them not scoring after this year, so maybe that's the thing they can do. I saw that the Cubs just released Andrelton Simmons. He's a terrible bat. Go ahead and get him.
Yeah, great defender.
Yeah, so
10 years ago.
I think it's true. He might not even grade out well on defense anymore. But it's just the whole package. They don't seem to target talented players. We'll give them that. Like Javi Baez has all the defensive talent in the world. For whatever reason, he can't make routine throws. I would not. We knew that he is erratic in terms of throwing. I would not have predicted he'd have twice as many errors as he does home runs. But here we are. So I don't know. It's just been a bummer.
That throw he uncorked today, trying to turn the double play, was just unbelievably bad. Oh,
maybe he needs a dirty magazine like in Major League 2 with the catcher. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, that was the same thing. It was like the throw from Badu yesterday to no man's land. That reminded me of something that you would see in an uncoordinated little league effort. And I'm not saying that's like just a bad throw. Tom Umansky or Mansky somewhere was looking at that going, they didn't watch the video. They clearly did not watch the video.
Well, you just think back to, I mentioned this before, I'll say it again though. When we had Dan Dickerson on in preseason, and he was so excited about the up the middle defense, what that was going to look like. And I'm not ripping on Dan. A lot of us felt that way. I mean, that was kind of that. Everybody thought that was going to be a real strength of the ball club, and it just, other than scope, it just really hasn't evolved.
Yeah, and again, I know with Castro doing his thing at first base, but they don't really have another option. I mean, they're not going to call Quincy Deporte. That's not going to happen. I mean, he has had a really good year, but then again, stranger things have happened. I don't know what's going to. I mean, right now it's a brand new ball game. I was telling Chris about this earlier. I was talking on the phone. We can't. The Tigers are not for the first time in a decade. The Tigers are not going to be predictable. I mean, the last couple of drafts have shown that a little bit, and we've been seeing that. But now it's completely our educated guesses, our well-informed guesses are going to have to be sharper. We're going to have to do more, stronger, faster. That's what we're going to have to do. So, all right. We have a question in Rube. Yeah, Rube. There it is, Christopher. Thank you. Rube was a character in Major League 2 that he was referring to. Couldn't remember the guy's name. Yeah. And it was fitting because Rube. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So, Chris, what's the next question?
Well, the only question that I saw on Twitter was from Epic D3C, and it was about possible GM candidates, which we discussed already. I don't know if you guys had any other names you wanted to throw out there.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, one we haven't mentioned. Everybody thinks that AJ Hinch is going to have a lot of say in this. So one of them is potential. Was it Pete Patila or Papila? I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he's the current assistant general manager of the Astros. And it's not as varied a resume as I would like to see. I kind of want to see guys who have held a lot of different positions in a lot of different places, just so they have that network. But he's held a whole bunch of roles with the Astros. He is signed up in 2011 as an intern, became the baseball operations coordinator, then the director of minor league operations, then the director of player development from 2016 to 2019, which is probably a pretty fruitful era of player development for the Astros. And he's been the assistant GM since then. So presumably has a good relationship with AJ Hinch. He would be a guy I think you would consider. But again, there's probably 30 good candidates out there. It's tough to say who would be the best. I don't know. I'm not qualified to make that decision.
Do Falvey and Levine still kind of share the job in Minnesota?
That's a good question. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, does one of them want to run their own shop? That's like.
Yeah, I mean that they may be doing kind of what we expect Minzin Sartori, tandem would do, where one of them handles kind of the business side, and one of them handles the baseball side. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly somebody I would approach. Right, I'd approach everybody.
But give him a Little Caesars franchise while you're at it. I mean,
but he did have a secondary part to that question. He said, "Do we think Scott Pleiss will be let go?" Scott Pleiss, the scouting director for the Detroit Tigers. I
think there was something about, and Steve Cook mentioned this earlier, that they might just clean house completely with the scouting department. And I hope, with the exception, of course, our boy in Arizona, Joey. Yeah, please don't let him go. You know why? Everybody who's listening, he found Bo Brisky and he found Wilmer Flores. He's done a pretty good job of scouting the area. So
yeah.
See the results.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of discussed this in private, but our expectation is that basically anybody who was one of Al's guys, as it were, basically anybody who was hired prior to last August, when they made the overhaul and put Minzin and Sartori as VP roles and shifted Chad and Littlefield to the basement with the guy with the stapler in Office Space. Anybody hired before then might be looking over their shoulder, and that
might need to get that resume sharpened up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Pleiss has been with the org for 10, 12 years, something like that. Dan Lunetta is the minor league director. I think Tom Moore, the international scouting guy, is probably on his way out. I just think basically anybody who wasn't part of the Garco, Gabe Rebus tree may be gone. Now, it's debatable as to whether, I would think they would be dumb to get rid of Joey Lothrop, like we said, the scout from Arizona. He's got results. Keep that guy. And I'm not sure about Kenny Graham. You know, that he came on a couple years ago. He and it was Dan Hubbs, right? That was kind of their first attempt at modernizing their player development and scouting. And they let Dan Hubbs go, but they kept Kenny Graham. So I would assume maybe they'll keep him again, but it's tough to say. But yeah, I would be shocked if Scott Pleiss sticks around, and not necessarily for any reason other than it's just like, hey, it's time to change the way we do things.
You know what? I look at it this way: if you're going to be around, Al Avila, this is what's going to happen to you. Honestly, it's
the world.
It's gonna. So, have you ever seen the movie Thinner?
Oh, this is Thinner.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is what's going to happen. I curse you. Say what?
Look at that makeup. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's what's going to happen. And all the guys are just going to get skinnier and disappear. All right, that was okay. That was my lame attempt at humor, but
look at that makeup. Yeah. So bad.
Yeah. White man from town. All right.
Like, Weird Al looked better in the fat video.
He did. And by the way, that's a very underrated Stephen King movie, by the way. But yeah, you're right. That makeup, now that I see it, it looks ridiculous. Yeah.
But
so, all right. Anyways.
Yeah, those are the only questions we got on Twitter. I don't know what. There's any more in the chat we wanted to talk, or
yeah, we got one about torque swing, and we did get one from Stephen Cook. One more about his projections: 20 home runs, 280-ish average. I think the answer to his question, yeah.
For whom?
For Jace Young, who we saw on Friday. We saw last week. We saw his debut. Outside of one at bat, he didn't look out of place to me. I thought he looked pretty good out there.
Nice.
Yeah, he can hit. We haven't seen him hit a home run yet, but he knows how to get the bat in the ball, and he's got a pretty good eye. It's high A. I think that's probably appropriate level for him right now. But the way he's hitting, I assume he'll start next year in Double A. The only concern with him is he's like a 30-grade athlete, and there's nothing he can do about that, really. I mean, he's kind of a thick lower half. He's not very fast, but there's room for guys like that if they can hit and hit a lot. So I think, 280, 20 home runs is a reasonable expectation, I suppose. I don't know. It's always tough to say something like that. Like, once upon a time, that's what we thought Kristen Stewart would do, right? And once he got to the big leagues, it was like, uh-oh. So, yeah, I would, cautiously optimistic for something like that. How about that?
Yeah, I believe the same thing. I think that the fact he's hanging in high A pitching is good, but again, it's also the level of competition he's facing right now. He is facing some good pitchers. It's not the same as it was in the beginning of the year, and you're getting some guys that are coming in. But then you read a story that a guy we both liked, Chris, that the Angels put up in Double A already, and
Zach Neto.
Yeah, Zach Neto. We were both very high on him because of his advanced ability. I mean, they called him up based off a 200 batting average or something to that effect, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if part of that was just because the Angels don't have anybody in their minors.
Yeah.
And, we literally don't have a shortstop at Double A.
Yeah.
So possible.
Yeah, because somebody got the call up. They're like, "See, oh, look at Jace Young. He's slow." Shut up.
I mean, well, that's the thing. Like Zach Neto, he might end up being a second baseman as well, and he had his college numbers were as good or better than Jace Young. He just was at a smaller school, so it was a little bit more risky. But he's a significantly better athlete, so you mitigate the risk there. But the Tigers, we've discussed before, the Tigers generally do not take hitters unless they are from big conference schools, which to me indicates a lack of faith in their own scouting ability, if you will, but or development ability, or both.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Yeah, we have to definitely. I think it's been a week. It's been a week, and I mean, we had to move the showtime. We usually been going on so we've been on Thursdays, and then when that happened yesterday, we did an emergency pod that you can find on our feed, and so we thank everybody for participating on both. And as far as I'm supposed to go tomorrow to Toledo to go watch the great Austin Bergner take a pitch. Have
a catch.
Yeah, have a catch.
There you go.
Field of Dreams. I was thinking of Field of Dreams. and I'm supposed to go down there tomorrow and watch them pitch, but we shall see. But thank you everybody for listening. Thank you also we got a couple of new people on Patreon too. So thank you for participating in that. I really appreciate it. And again, sorry we're late tonight. And next week, by the way, there's no, as far as Sunday show goes for the minor league report, there will be no show. I am going on vacation as of Sunday, but knowing me, I still will be around. So you'll be on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I'll be in Fremont, Indiana. That's where I'll be with my family. And my wife made these camping shirts that have our family thing. It's a thing we do now, which I never thought I would see the day that we have a shirt that says camp trip thing. Oh, yeah. All right, I sound like a cynical asshole, but it's just, I'd rather be West Michigan. What's up?
That first night you got your weenie on a stick over the open fire, you are going to be happy as could be.
For a second, the way you phrased that. Well, hopefully, I think I'm between the hamburger helper. Good Lord! All right, sorry.
Did you guys discuss at all the impending return of Daniel Norris tomorrow? Daniel Norris is starter tomorrow. He'll be the Tigers' 16th starter of the year, and they'll have to make another move to the 40-man for that.
I think they did. They sent.
Did they?
They sent back. Yeah, they sent Luis Castillo down.
Did they? But they'd have to DFA him, or they'd have to DFA somebody because Norris is not on the 40-man. I don't think.
Let me see here. What are I?
But it doesn't really matter. It's Daniel Norris. Yeah. They're just looking for bodies now. But
he's gonna, he's gonna go a good outing. He's gonna go 4 innings, give up 3 runs. That's kind of.
Yeah.
Well, to your point earlier, Drew Hutchison has the 3rd most innings pitched on the Tigers staff this year.
Wow.
Behind Skubal and Brisky.
I'm telling you, that's going to be the title of his book, Living Up to No Expectations.
So, anyway.
All right, everybody. Daniel Norris against the White Sox. Look, they could win a couple games in Chicago. I mean, Chicago is a giant crap show, so we'll see. But
that'd be great.
That would be awesome. Honestly, I would like, again, not the Tigers to lose 100 games or whatever the case is. I just like the Tigers to be competitive. And right now, it's been a long season. But the vacation actually comes at a good time. And hopefully, like I said, I might be off the grid for a day or two, but trust me, not long. Because honestly, like there's so much going on right now, and we have Lakeland going on with Peyton Graham. There's so much baseball to still talk about, and that's the thing. Look, the end of the show. For all the bad baseball I've watched the Tigers this year, there are some things to hang your hat about. The minor leagues is doing surprisingly well. We've seen some progress. They still have ways to go, and we'll be talking content here for the content gods, as we would say. If anybody's listened to the show long enough, we have content for the next 4 or 5 months, but depending on who they hire. So I'm just grateful to do this, and I'm grateful for everybody who's listening. And so thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good week, everybody. And also, if you're one of those people that got on Woodward Tigers and was getting on because the way it was phrased about Rick Porcello and Kevin Youkilis, I put that Kevin Youkilis tackled Rick Porcello after he plunked him, and everybody on Twitter, oh no! Thank you for reminding me 1,000 times about that.
I remember.
Your tweet got really big too, Youper. So
it did.
Was it Dan O'Shaughnessy, the old Boston Globe writer?
Yeah.
I remember he wrote a story about that, and it said that Youkilis hogtied Porcello, and everybody's like, "What in the hell were you watching?" He got turned and thrown his ring. I remember that being a big deal.
Toss takedown, man.
Yeah.
It was textbook. Porcello took him down.
And that was such a random mound charge. I remember that because Porcello was pitching really well that game. It was one of his best games that year. And there was obviously no intent there. And Youkilis just felt like charging the mound. Clown.
Yep.
Clown Youkilis.
Yeah, and look, we know what happened. I phrased it wrong, but I don't need to be reminded 1,000 effing times. I'm sorry. I'm just like I'm in a mood this week. It's been a long.
I'll send you a text while you're camping.
Pardon me?
I'll send you a text to remind you while you're camping.
Yeah. Just letting you know, Roger. Letting you know, Rogelio. This is what really happened. No shit, Sherlock. All right. On that note, thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody. I'm telling you, man.